awake. I guess many of you were at the party yesterday, so great that you come. Yeah, I'm super honored to have almost a full panel today. We're still waiting for one person, but we thought we'd just kick it off, and hopefully he will join us later. We will hear today, and I'll very briefly just introduce the three panelists that are here now, and we will do it again later probably, but I really would start to kick off with a very short question. So yeah, we have Rosetta and Chloe from the United States, Texas here, and we have Jesse Stoppler from Canada. Yeah, maybe a round of applause to welcome them. So, I would like to just ask you a question to answer with one single word to start this off. What gives you strength in your fight? Yeah, I think Rochelle, you're ready.
No, I'm ready. I'm excited. Good morning, everyone. And I'm from Louisiana, not Texas, but it's okay. I claim them too. The question a word, I guess it's two words, my children. There's so many of them, I can't just say one word. So, my children.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My word is community.
Yeah, good morning. Zevos, as I learned. My word is love. It's love for the community, love for the people, love for one each other, love for yourself, love for the land. Yeah, love.
Thank you. I'm already touched. It's just 3 minutes into the panel, so okay, let's see what's happening today. So yeah, this panel is trying to shed a light on the different struggles against fossil gas exports, fossil fuel exports, mostly in the form of LNG. And this has many faces, and I think there are also many differences, but also many patterns in how industry.
Just one quick remark. I'm going to answer in German. Wenn irgendjemand eine Dolmetschung auf Deutsch braucht, wir hätten hier Receiver. Also einfach kommen und holen. Wenn nicht auch kein Ding, aber es gibt auf jeden Fall das Angebot.
So as you see, amazingly our panelists. Prince, you were fighting yourself through the wilderness of Vienna to come here. Wow, good job. Lots of people had difficulties finding the places, so great that we have you here. We just kicked off, so you missed like 2 minutes. So yeah, this is Prince from Nigeria, and I just said I kicked it off with a very superficial introduction, and we will do it properly in a second. So yeah, just to show a bit the outline, saying that there are many differences between the struggles on fossil fuel exports, but many similarities as well on how reckless industries are, getting their way. So I think we try to shed a light on that as well, but also, maybe even more importantly, have some space as well to show what works and what has been done and what are the good experiences and what are the wins and what are the wishes. So yeah, so we don't do all doom and gloom, because we have extremely powerful people here who made it here, and already the fact that we are here together speaking united about this topic, I think it shows that we got somewhere. So yeah, I'd love to start with Rosetta and Chloe. Rosetta, sorry to get it wrong, because Rosetta is working for the Texas Campaign for the Environment and also for the Vessel Project. And Chloe works for the Texas Campaign for the Environment and comes from Corpus Christi, Texas, where the second largest chunk of all the US LNG that arrives in Europe is coming from. Yeah, Rosetta and Chloe, I'm happy that you tell us more about Texas and Louisiana, and the floor is almost yours. Just to give you a little overview, so we'll have the panelists speak, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So please keep your question and don't forget it until the end. Yeah, so thank you for sharing with us.
Okay, So yeah, I come from Corpus Christi, Texas, and it's a city of about 350,000 people. So it's a good mid-sized city. It's small enough to where you go to the grocery store and you see people you went to high school with. It's very awkward, especially now because they're like, "Oh, you do like activism, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But big enough to where obviously it has a lot of geopolitical significance, something that I didn't really recognize until I was a bit older and had really great mentors who opened my eyes to our port of Corpus Christi and the damage that it was doing to our community. And from there, I mean, it was just floodgates kind of opened, and there's no going back once you become aware of how intricate the system of, and I'm borrowing this from comrades from Attack, fossil fuel politics is. And so, yeah, I guess just to give an overview of kind of what we're dealing with in terms of the fossil fuel industry, Corpus Christi has been the site of like traditional oil and gas refineries since the 1930s. And what we have seen in our area is what we call environmental racism. I'm sure many of you now are aware of what this is, right? But it is like the purposeful placement or displacement of usually people of color, and usually lower income people, poor people, working class people, into areas where the land is degraded. And so life expectancies are lower, right? Cancer rates are higher. There's a system of organized abandonment by the state on like all levels, local, statewide, and national, right? So our area where environmental racism, runs rampant is in the north side of Corpus Christi, where there used to be two historically black neighborhoods, Hillcrest and Washington Coles. Hillcrest is still there, and they will remain there as long as we have a say in it. So like through the practice of redlining, right? So like the purposeful kind of like urban planning to like place certain people in certain neighborhoods, right? So like the north side of Corpus Christi was right by the water. It's a really beautiful area. That's where we actually had our first ever country club, and it was an exclusively all white area. And the thing you have to know about Texas, right, is like it is the melting pot of like the worst strains of American fascism, right? So you have the attempted genocide of the indigenous peoples that were there, chattel slavery, and then also incredible anti-immigrant, particularly anti-Mexican immigrant sentiment. So we didn't just have Jim Crow, we also had Juan Crow, right? So yeah, that area of the city was exclusively white and wealthy until the 1930s when the city rezoned it to be an industrial area. And so that is when the city forced Black and Latinx people into the north side where they built all of the refineries. And so now today, because decades and decades of this intergenerational harm through pollution, right? If you live on the north side of Corpus Christi, you can expect to live 17 years less than people 10 miles away on the south side of our city. So that's been our context for many decades. And what's recent now, since the exports ban was lifted in the United States in 2015, yeah, we've seen an explosion of petrochemical facilities and fracked methane gas export facilities, or LNG as the industry calls it. So yeah, we have the second largest export facility in our area. It's called Cheniere. It started operating in 2019, and according to one of our state environmental regulatory agencies, accounted for 83% increase in air pollution for the entire region, right? Hundreds and hundreds of air pollution violations, and they've never had to pay a single fine. The only thing that they have to do is go back to the agency when they see that they are in violation of their limits. And mind you, the only air monitor that we have for this facility is owned by the company. They self-report, so they have to self-report when they have a violation. So these 200 plus violations that we have on record are just what Cheniere has opted to tell us, right? And one of the amazing things that our community has done has been to, find money for our own community air monitors. So, that's part of the resistance is actually knowing what's in our air and kind of using that data to fight back. We also have the world's largest ethane steam cracker of its kind, also in the same area. So that's kind of like the more recent development that we've been seeing, and honestly, it's like that newer build out that has led us to make these very real material connections to you all in Austria, but Europe in general. Cheniere has a long-term contract with OMV, which is partly owned by the Austrian state. So that is our direct material connection to Vienna and Austria. And so for the sake of brevity, I will leave it there.
Y'all can clap for Chloe. Hello again, everyone. As mentioned, I'm not from Texas. I'm not even from Louisiana. I'm actually from Mississippi. I've been in Louisiana about 21 years this year. And I've been doing community organizing for about that long. I started off doing in the state of Mississippi, in the small area where I'm from. It's called the Delta of Mississippi. The town that I'm from in Mississippi is a small Black community. My aunt was the mayor my whole life. My grandmother was the director of the Head Start. So I grew up seeing Black women and Black people being in really high positions in my community. I didn't know how poor the community was. I just knew that the people that I knew were well respected. They were community organizers. They were the people who knocked on doors and helped people register to vote. My grandmother was a little girl with, not so little, about 16, 17, with Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, as she was marching in the streets of Mississippi for the Head Start program to be started, and then consequently worked in the Head Start system. So those are the things that I grew up knowing and hearing about. So when I graduated high school in 2003 and had this full scholarship to go to McNeese State University in Louisiana, I was like, I'm getting out of this little small town where everybody is related, everybody knows each other, and I thought I was moving to a big city. When I entered that city with my entire family, because my mom was like, my daughter is moving 7 hours away, I'm moving too. So she moved our whole family, me and all of my 4 siblings. We moved to Louisiana, and as we were traveling, we had never been to Louisiana before. As we were traveling to the house where we were going to live, all we could see was lights. It was the middle of the night, it was very dark, but we could see all of these bright lights, and we saw this really tall bridge. We had never seen anything like it, and it was like, we thought when we drove to the top of this bridge, we were just gonna fall over the other side. That's how high that bridge was. And as we continued to travel up this bridge headed west, we saw all of what looked like buildings and statues, and it looked so pretty as we were driving west headed up this bridge. And when we got to the top of the bridge, I remember thinking, as this 18-year-old girl who's going to this new place for college, oh my goodness, we've made it to the city. This looks like New York. It was so beautiful from inside of that car at the top of that bridge. But as we traveled down that bridge and we got to what the foot of the bridge, the foot of the ITN bridge, we quickly realized that those were not buildings and city lights and statues. Those were industrial pollution tanks and different structures that were connected to those facilities. Those lights that we saw were actually flares and fires that were coming from those facilities. All of that steam and all of the smoke and what we thought was fog was pollution. The buildings were not even real. They weren't like buildings that people were in. These were industrial structures. And so we continued to go into the town. And I remember as my younger siblings, we were looking at the houses that we were passing. And I remember thinking, surely there aren't any houses that's like really close to these facilities. But sure enough, the home that my mom had been able to afford to move there, that she was so excited about and wondering why she had gotten such a good deal, was because the house was right on the fence line of this industrial complex in Westlake, Louisiana. So that was my first introduction to big industry. As the time went on and we were living in Westlake, I remember hearing people saying things like, that is where everybody works, so many people work there, and I was just looking at this town like, it looks like the town I came from. It was still very poor, not a lot of red lights, not a Walmart or any type of big shopping centers or a mall or anything. The difference with this particular town is that it was predominantly white. But the street we were living on and the community we were in is where all the black people lived. And it was right on the fence line of the industry. And at the time, I didn't recognize what was going on. In the Delta of Mississippi, we didn't know what environmental racism was because we were dealing with all the other types of racism, right? So I didn't know that term. But I had done all of this community work before, so I was used to making sure people had drinking water and food. That's what my family always did. My grandmother cooked on Sundays and fed the entire community. My grandmother still, to this day, everybody knows that if they're hungry, they can knock on her door and she has a plate of food available. So that's what we had done, and so those are the things I started to do in the Lake Charles area. I started getting to know my community by just cooking meals, feeding the houseless, going to the different shelters and things like that. But as I was doing these things, being a college student, being in a new community, again, predominantly white, the university where I went was a PWI, a predominantly white institution, and I just noticed how even the black kids at that university were siloed in their own little section. Today we talk about like the old ranch is where like the black and brown kids would be, but the white kids would be all over the rest of the campus. And I didn't know what I had moved into. I did not know then that today I would be fighting for this community the way that I am, because I was so ready to go at that moment. I was like, just take me home. I'm not used to this. But fast forward to 2020. All of us were trying to survive in this global pandemic that was happening. At this time, I was working as a paraprofessional for the school, but something else was also happening in 2020. We all know who was the president at that time, and this pandemic was happening. But what else was happening in Louisiana were two major hurricanes occurred, Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. They happened in August, that early fall of 2020. When these hurricanes happened, there was also a transition that was happening in my personal life, that I had recognized all of the things that were happening within Louisiana, within the government systems, and really connecting everything together. Like, why is it that this area seems to be declining, but more industry has come in the years that I've been here? And I couldn't understand why we weren't in a much better place. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I started asking questions about does industry contribute to anything here other than having their names on like the local schools, the parks, whatever? So I was asking these questions in a pandemic while we had these hurricanes happening, but also trying to navigate a system for myself and for my children at the time, because I had been in a domestic abuse marriage for 17 years, so trying to find resources for myself. Lost my home to the hurricane, so I was trying to find housing and apply for FEMA. I had 6 children who needed to eat, so I was trying to find food and resources for them, and I could not find these things. I could not, as myself, as somebody who graduated valedictorian and came to a place on a full scholarship, not saying that it takes any type of academic smarts to understand this system, but I was like, if I can't understand it, think about a person who cannot read, who cannot comprehend, who has a language barrier, who does not have access to even the material that is supposed to teach you how to navigate this system to survive in this community. So because I couldn't find those things, I started getting on social media, and I was asking other people, what can I help you with today? How can I pray for you? Are you okay? What do you need? Those were the questions that I was asking. I was not prepared for the responses. People needed help. People needed housing. People needed food. People were in domestic abuse situations. People were asking for money for abortions. It was so many things, and I was so overwhelmed that I got in my car and I drove to North Lake Charles, where predominantly black. Then I got out of my car and I just started knocking on doors. And I was like, do you need somewhere to stay? Because clearly your roof is caved in from this hurricane. You cannot stay in this house. Can I get you a hotel room? And as I was doing it, I was going live on Facebook, but not like showing people's faces. I was going live screaming at all of the decision makers. I was like, the mayor of Lake Charles does not care about the people. People are dying, people are hurting, people are being abused, and people were like watching the live, and they were, how can I help? How can I help? And so I went to the hotel and I started paying for hotel rooms. And I'll never forget the people who showed up that day. Today, that's really my base of people. They still show up for everything. But the people who showed up that day with their credit cards, like, how many rooms can I pay for? And the people who got under my posts on social media, who were like, I will get 3 hotel rooms. I will donate this amount of money. People, I was saying earlier that in Louisiana, we have casinos. And if you gamble a lot at the casinos, one of the perks is that you get free hotel stays at the casino hotel. People were like, you can have my free hotel stays for whoever needs it. You can have my meal vouchers. Like, I don't have money, but I have food. I have a garden. You can come and get food for them. So we ended up putting over 300 people in hotels on February the 14th, 2021. I'll never forget, because it was Valentine's Day. The local news came out to do a story, and they were like, what are you calling yourselves? What is this organization? I was like, this is not an organization. I'm a mom. I still say that to this day. Like, I'm just a mom who couldn't figure it out. So I wanted to help other people figure it out. And that is the day the Vessel Project was born. On the news story, I was like, I'm just a vessel. I don't have the money to put 300 people in a hotel. The money, the resources are just flowing through me into the community. I'm just a vessel. So that is the story of how the Vessel Project started. It is truly, it was truly out of the abundance of need for myself and the recognizing that there were not resources in a community that on the outside appeared to be very rich in resources because of the industry, because of the amount of money that industry was making, but yet there were no simple resources for people to survive in this community. And because of that birth of Vessel Project, that is the way Vessel Project still operates today, through helping the most vulnerable people meet their needs with direct cash assistance, housing. We don't ask questions. It doesn't matter if you're who you are, what color you are, where you come from. We help whoever asks for help. I then changed it to the Vessel Project of Louisiana, because of course in 2021 more disasters happened. Another hurricane, a flood, the freeze. We started helping people in Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. And that is what the Vessel Project is. And I really wanted to give that backstory today, because in that despair, in that hopelessness that I had in the moment when I just thought, you know, I can't feed my children, I can't house them. What is my purpose for being on this earth? I was really ready to leave. I was like, my children don't need a person who can't care for them. But in that hopelessness, I was able to figure out how to help other people, and it helped me. And I continue to think, if just, you know, the simple things that people ask me for. Somebody, there was one houseless person who would not come from under the bridge. He said, all I need is just a cigarette. I just need to smoke a cigarette to clear my mind. And I went directly to the store, got a pack of cigarettes. I was like, you can smoke the whole pack, but you have to come from under the bridge because a freeze is coming and I need to put you in a hotel room. Like the simple things that people need that we make so complex, that we feel like if we give somebody money, they're going to buy drugs, they're going to buy alcohol. We cannot assume what a person needs. A person can take care of their own needs if they have the resources, if they have the support, and that was not available in a community that was overflowing with billion-dollar industry. And that is when my attack and my assault on industry happened. I was like, you cannot be here in this community if you are not going to make the lives of the people better. So I want to start with that. There's going to be more questions. I talk a lot. But I really want to give that context, because in this moment, we all are feeling this hopelessness, this existential crisis of industry is so much bigger than us. But if we help each other, if we see the needs of each other and we fulfill those needs and we build the community up, we build the people up, we make sure that people are not putting out their own individual fires. Those are the same people who are going to be your base. Those are the people who are going to show up. Those are the people who are going to help you fight against industry and win. You cannot do it alone. And so I just really wanted to give kind of that little story.
Thank you, Rosetta. Thank you and thank you, Chloe, as well. Thank you for two of you to take us to Texas, to Mississippi, to Louisiana. I was really there, and I guess the others too. Yeah, I'd love to introduce now Jesse. He is the co-executive director for the Skeena Watershed Conservation Coalition and the deputy chief of the Hogwiljet Village Council. Pardon me if I say it wrong. And yeah, so his full name is Jesse Stoppler Gui Lochem Gabu, and please correct it too. I wanted to try. Jesse's a land defender and is fighting the reckless build out of LNG export pipeline. And I guess there's much more that I don't know about, and so I'm really happy to listen to you now and to learn about all the struggles that you're dealing with, and also the resources that you're having to, helping you to deal with them.
Thank you so much. Denise Tsakose Skyse Saisozi Guilacham Gubu Gidem Dendista. I belong to a Giksan house, but today we have and I want to honor that we have a High Chief of the Matudan, my relatives, in the room. So out of respect, it was important to me that I can address this also in Matudan, as well as Hopulacha, fellow Giksan, and to all of you. It's beautiful to be here. I belong to, as I mentioned, a Giksan house. It's called Wilpspok. Our society, and you had mentioned that we're Canadian. We don't identify as Canadian. We've existed long before a state or a country like Canada invaded us. Yet, we've never ceded our territories. We've never agreed to surrender our land, our title, our rights. we have and always had a fully functioning society. We have our own laws, and we take care of each other and our own people in very intricate ways. And we certainly have never needed someone like Canada to interfere. We welcomed the people that visited us and never left, and we look after them. That's within our culture, to be good hosts. It didn't take very long, and after we nourished these people, the tables turned, and I think the settler society realized how much wealth there is within our territories and within our lands. And it would never occur to us as people to lay claim to these resources. We're stewards of the land, we're stewards of the animals. We coexist, we always have. And if you fast forward a couple of 100 years, things have turned a little extreme, and these very same people lay claim to everything you might find in Canada. They lay claim to the resources. They became very, very rich by extracting these resources and bringing them to their countries. For example, the wood fiber industry, logging of trees, has been building homes around this globe. But it's not building homes within Canada. We have far too many houseless people. We have all the resources, but we can't afford them anymore. And LNG, fossil fuels, have become a very big topic. The world has learned how much money there is involved in fossil fuels. And time and time we learned that we don't benefit from the resource or the extraction, but we're left with the bill. We're left with the trauma. We're left with the hurt of the people. We're left with the hurt of the land. And when everything is gone, these people will move on to a different country. And this is nothing new. I'm sure everyone is well aware of it. We've seen this around the world. But in the 70s, and this is relevant because it takes me right back to my very own home community. The Gitxsan and the Wet'suwet'en, two nations, combined look after roughly 55,000 square kilometers of land. And these two nations have always had an alliance to look after each other, to keep peace, to work together, to build unity. There's a lot of intermarriages. And these two nations took this in a very smart way to the court system of Canada to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't keep doing this. We've never ever agreed that you can have our land, that you can have our resources. You showed up and you took it. And now we need to abide to your law system? I don't think so. And a lot of my relatives, a lot of our relatives have spent a lifetime working on this court case. And nobody ever made money. Everyone spent money. This was really expensive. People would travel thousands of kilometers just to get from our small hometown to a bigger place like Vancouver, which is roughly 1,200 kilometers away. And just to put this into relation a little bit, if you were to combine these two these two nations, the Giksan and the Batsuren, their combined landmass of 55,000 square kilometers is larger than your neighbor, the country of Switzerland. This is just our territory. So we hold this really, really high to this date in our communities, in our stories. We all have relatives that dedicated their life and efforts into this court case. Eventually, at first it didn't look very good. The BC Supreme Court turned us down, and I'm really thankful for the great leadership within our Marines. They would take this to the Supreme Court of Canada, and with the help of a lot of good allies, they were then able to establish and win this court case on December 11th, 1997. I know this date well because it's also the birthday of my youngest son. And you can't even imagine the wave of positivity that would go through our hometown of winning the case. Something that seemed so far away is there. We got this. What we didn't do is all the necessary follow-up. This court case took roughly 20 some odd years, and now it's taken another 27 years for us to find common ground to continue this fight. This is a really long story. To arrive at a point of painting a picture for you, this court case refers to our title and right to this land, and the very fact that we've never ceded it. We've never given up. We've never surrendered any of it. But we had to prove it. Over the last 5 to 10, I would say 10 years, fossil fuel industry and extraction came right to our doorstep. Now, it's nothing new to Canada. The Alberta oil fields, oil sands, and other places offshore have always been subjected to it, far longer than 10 years. But we were not prepared to see this at our very own doorstep. And I feel that collectively there was a sense of, well, nothing can actually happen to us because we have this court case. This is our land, this is our title and right. We were not consulted. When we were consulted, we made this very, very clear. We do not want this. Our leadership made this very clear. In our governance system, in our governance model, collectively said, not here, not now, not ever. And that's not what Canada wanted to hear, and that's certainly not what industry wanted to hear. So he would go ahead and do it anyways. And for years, I have to admit I had blinders because I thought this is industry. Industry is pushing their way. Until I learned that of course it's industry. But the bigger problem is Canada. Canada makes this possible. Canada produces laws and legislature that support this, that allow for this, that push for this, that's directed by industry. And I've lived some time in Europe. I went to school in Germany for some time. And I have a lot of European friends. And it became really quite obvious to me that Germans Austrians, Swiss, they really like the idea of Canada, their perceived picture of who Canada is. I get it. I would too. But that's not the real Canada. The Canada that we face, that we live in, that we have to fear, is at our doorsteps with a militarized police enforcing industry's wishes. This Canada brings attack dogs. This Canada, quite frankly, doesn't give a shit about Indigenous title and right. This Canada points guns at our children, at our females. It's a massive amount of trauma. As if we as Indigenous people have not had enough trauma. Canada has a bad reputation when it comes to how they've been treating Indigenous people, the very first people that have always been there. And Canada's laws, historically, were set up and written in a way to systemically oppress the real, true title holders of the land. Canada has a very sad track record. There was a really grim period of time that everyone in my family knows about. Everyone in my family has lived through it or not survived it. Every one of my friends has family that was affected by these residential schools. And that was Canada's first approach to systemically eradicate Indigenous people. Our schools stemming from this era, the very last one closed in 1996, have a graveyard, a cemetery attached to it. Please take a look when you travel home today and you pass by a school, you'll see a playground, not cemeteries. This is the real Canada. It's not your friendly neighbor. Quite frankly, it has nothing to do with any perceived image that Canada or Canadians might carry out into the world. And it's historically always on the backs of Indigenous and Black people all over this globe. This LNG industry is and has been the latest and greatest. And the elected governance system, electoral system in Canada has set out a path forward that makes all of these moves possible for our industries fighting us as Indigenous people. So I'm bringing you these messages. I know they're hard to digest, but it's important, and I'm very thankful that I've been invited to be here over a course of time, so that we can hopefully communicate better, build relationship, and do a better job at painting the picture of who Canada really is. And I wanted to say that this is something that really stood out to me. We operate as Indigenous people, as Giksan, as Wet'suwet'en, we operate on a matrilineal system. And we hold our women high. They're our leaders. They're knowledge keepers. And when I look around the room, what I've experienced over the last few days that I've been here, I see the same values. The ones that are not intimidated, that don't have fear to stand up, are women. So thank you.
Man, this audience are so powerful, as you said earlier. Oh. Hi everyone, my name is Francis Rorika. I work with Connected Advocacy based in Niger Delta. I know we are here to look at fossil fuels exports and looking at the resistance and how we can also forge ahead. I come from one of the little communities among the 9 states in Niger Delta, where the world capital for pollution, the most polluted communities in the world, without environmental justice for the people, and where you can wake up in the morning and find soot in your cars, in your house, even your white can turn black, because of the level of extractions. The heat wave is high, that can add to the extent that children can no longer go to school. You just have to keep them indoors. And you don't move anyhow if you don't have anything you are doing. So this is how the pictures of the level of exploration and extortions looking for this fossil fuel. I'll give a little background around the historic development of fossil fuel in Nigeria, the current challenges right now, and also looking at the little gaps and the way forward. This will form my basics of discussion this morning. The historical development of fossil gas exploration in Nigeria started way back in 1956, like over 6 decades from now. And it started from a little community called Iloebiri. Iloebiri is a small community in Oba local government in Bayelsa State. That local government used to be predominantly, that's the Niger Delta people, we have 2 main occupations. We are into fish and we are into agricultural practice. This is our traditional way of life before the advent of fossil gas. So, as it was discovered in 1956, 2 years after the British colonial people, which are our slave masters, they granted license to the company now called today Share. We call it hair, not share. This company was given the authorization to look for crude oil anywhere, whether the land belongs to the people, in the sea, in their homes, back of their houses, even inside their houses, anywhere you just sense crude oil, go straight and extract. That was the permission given. Until this very hour, that permission is still very in existence. And the production starts coming. The colonial masters start making money. More investment towards that was on. They were making a lot of capital, but they forget the people, the land, the environment completely. So this exercise keep on from one administration to another, one people to another, one government to another, till we got an independence in 1960. That same agreement was now improved upon. It now becomes a joint venture. The extractive company and the government. They were now partners in crime for this extraction. Till this very moment, we the people do not know the actual amount of this fossil gas that is truly extracted from our community. But you can read in paper, they will tell you about 1.5 million liters a day, which is a big lie. The fossil does not have meter, does not have tracking, does not have sensor. So they just go there, anything the white man tell us, that was what they produced today. And this exercise keep on moving, and the pollution became tense. They were now moving from Ilobiri, that little community, they now moved into Isoko North and the Shekiri Kingdom, which is in the Delta State. So the extraction and the scrambling for this oil still continue, and they were now moving one state to another, because we have 9 states now that forms the Niger Delta community. So, and each of these states has these resources. So this is how they were just now increasing the investment in that region. And every community they go to, they ensure they now do what we call the divide and rule. The heads and those people that will give them problem, they are sorted. And the people who can no longer fight for justice for themselves, they are excluded. So this is what forms what we do, providing inclusion and ensuring the people's rights and voices have been heard. It has not been a sweet journey because it's rough. People are even scared to speak because they don't know what will happen to them next. So the production keep on. They now move to a place called, you hear Port Harcourt, the Ogoni community. The Ogoni community was where the struggle of environmental justice now starts from. The Ogoni community happened to be a key example that the world is using now for environmental activism, due to our late uncle, our big brother, Ken Saruwa. May God rest his soul, because he died during this struggle. And that community now begin to use what you guys were doing, the community organizing was once tried in that community, where the level of extraction and extractivism was like at a peak. This time, no longer land now, the water they drink now is now being included, because they said the permission is anywhere. Anywhere there is gas, go for it. So, including the water that they drink, go for it. Now, the water also was also polluted, and the Ogoni community, led by our big uncle, Ken, now begin to say, speak to the people. We cannot remain like this. We need to protest. Then we went into the military era as a system of government. And community organizing has brought the issues now, identifying the issue, which was the pollution to our water and the land. Then community now began to mobilize. Then the protest was one of the largest protests in the Niger Delta, was bettered through that action of that community organizing. And people, women, they all came out, begin to do the protest, and we have over 300 community women and youth who came out the first protest, and the government was not happy about it because it's giving problem now to share. And remember, the objective of share is make that money, get that resources. not considering the persons, the community that is involved, just get that resources. So it was clear example of profit over people. And many lives were lost. I couldn't even mention the health hazards. The one you guys saw is just like a fair share. When you were seeing 17 years down, ours, due to this pollution, has led to like, our life expectancy is 43 years. If you are 43 years old, you could survive, because how will you survive with polluted air? How will you survive with contaminated water? How will you survive with even the soil is polluted? So whatsoever you plant there is also polluted. So this is how we've been living the jungle life. The environmental hazard was clear, and the system was not also putting the people first. And we were having the fair share of the impact of this gas activism. And today, this same group of people who have been making this environment dry, making profit for the global north, increasing their investment. Even the Church of England was also part of it. They sponsored the same investment and never consider the people. Is it that because we are black, we are not supposed to be in existence? Is it that because we are black, the people of color, is there anything wrong with black? This keeps us continue to begin to cry. The need for the marginalized group, the voiceless women, the children who are suffering from it. Time will not fail me to talk about a little boy who through this impact was coming from school because of the area they used, attract serious erosion due to flooding, excessive flooding. And this erosion took the mother and the child. And the mother had the food in one hand, the child in another hand. As the pressure came, the mother was able to save the food and was not able to save the child. Till this very moment, that child still lost. Can't even find the corpse. I took time to do that story. I now do it on paint. And you can find most of the stories on our website. So I cried. We came out to search for the corpse. We couldn't find. And the government is not doing anything. Whenever there is spill, there are spill uncountable on a daily basis. Because this equipment now become absolute. Every time you see spills. And now the media is not even talking about it again because they are well paid. The news from that region is silent. The level of environmental damage there, you cannot recover from it. Because most of us now we have a respiratory problem, and most of us have mental health problem. Because those who were traditional fishermen before, imagine you toil through the night and you can't even find any fish. You go to farm where your yield used to be a bumper harvest, we dance, we have cultural tradition where whenever we call it New Yam Festival for these crops, we don't have them anymore because we don't even have most of these crops. Traditional wood, fruits, guava, mango, they don't even produce anymore. The level of yield is low because of the heavy pollution. So our biodiversity right now is completely damaged. Most markets have closed down, which survive from, as the fishermen come down to sell their fish, there are women youth, children that takes it from them, buy at a discounted price, and take it to that particular market. And now we did a documentary around that market. The market is locked because the fisherman can no longer come back with fish anymore. So most of those youths are those ones you see trying to find a better place for themselves. They won't struggle through land borders and every borders just to see how does clean air look like? How does potable water look like? Here you can comfortably go to that tap and get water. You cannot get water there. Everybody try to provide water for themselves because even the stream you want to go and look for water is already polluted. So the case in point is a genocide. But we all play politics with it. Our leaders play politics with it. Even most of our traditional leaders play politics with it. Last week I was speaking to them because I now said, okay, we can't keep quiet. We need to start to begin to mobilize again. So we now organize the local community summit on the oil divestment and environmental justice. Most of the community leaders said, are you crazy? Why are you beginning to educate these people? Don't you think they will come after us? I said that's what I want them to do. Because most of these polluters now have these chiefs, those in government, as their staffs in their offices. That's why I was telling somebody yesterday that the workers in share cannot fight share authorities because they are cronies of the traditional and the government and those in high authorities. Those are the kids. But those poor people are left with the cleaning job and every other dirty jobs. So they begin to scream. I said, no, we'll continue to educate these women, we'll continue to educate our youth. And we did that meeting. And I did a publication. I told them, if you refuse to speak about the environmental injustice that this region is suffering from, history will remember you for it. I was confident to talk about Ken Saro-Wiwa, who took time to fight for it, though he was killed by the military. You guys must speak up. This environment is our life. And if you fail to speak up, nature will ask you. So that's why we continue to do our bit to mobilize local communities, to begin to understand the tricks of share. And the most painful part right now, the exploitation of over 6 decades. Now, because of mobilization, little awareness, because there's still more need for more awareness, share has now decided to leave the community. They are divesting now from the community, and they want to go into the deep waters. They've destroyed our community now. They are moving now to destroy our aquatic life completely. So where do we go from here? We are crying for help. The people of Niger Delta are crying for help. Now the divestment, they are rushing to put it, they are selling up their feeds into marginal feeds to local business people to inherit their mess of 6 decades. Now I can no longer fight my brother, I can no longer fight my sister, go and kill yourself. So there are more violence and conflict will erode from there because now they are giving the ownership to indigenes after pollution, without compensation, without remediation. I asked some of the tenancy laws here, I said, they say you make a down payment of a deposit. When you want to leave, if you destroy anything, that down payment will use for the maintenance and the fixing. But now share is leaving our region, IOCs are leaving, there is no compensation, there is no remediation, there's nothing near restoration, and they are leaving us stranded. After they've extracted everything they want to extract from us, they are leaving us stranded. If you look at the level of pollution that we take in, they are leaving us stranded. And now, coming back to the challenges that is at hand as well, one is the divestment. A second is the increased investment in gas exploration. Currently, there is a signed deal in 2017, the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. I know most of you have read about it. This gas pipeline is going to travel about 5,600 kilometers from Nigeria through 12 different West African countries down to Morocco, then with terminal in Spain. That is part of European plans for energy security. And as we speak this very moment, I've not seen any plan around the environmental impact assessment or the environmental audits. Imagine 13 different countries around this West African coast. That is the emerging suffering that is going to come now from this fossil gas. 13 different countries, farmlands, crops, communities, this pipeline is going to pass through them. And imagine the level of hardship, hazard, pain, frustration, displacement, unemployment, loss of livelihood, destruction of the biodiversity. Mention but a few. This is going to occur in a very, very short time. Because the deals have been completed, and they had another meeting January 14 on the need to accelerate action. And nobody is talking about the people. So we, the people here today, I think that is a challenge to all of us. But we, the people here today, I think it's time for us to begin to unify our voices and let us coordinate our actions. And in conclusion, people, if we continue to keep quiet, they will keep on expanding this investment. People will keep dying. And global warming is no longer a news, it's a reality. Climate change is no longer friction. These are the real thing that has here to stay. So let us continue to see how we begin to work together and see how best we strengthen this part. And also, more sadly, many young activists in our region are giving up. That's the update right now. They are taking up challenge to support for solutions, to support the fossil greenwashing, brainwashing, and because they need these young people. They are building hostels in schools, and they are supporting with scholarships. And all this, very soon we'll be losing our comrades. We are already losing comrades to this fight. So let us begin to see how we strengthen this and ensure a co-creation initiative to develop a new path to fight this resistance. We must not allow them to win. I know together we can make that difference. Amagla.